let's go to Twizel and let's be positive. Because a positive man, he wouldn't be booing the ref. He'd be saying, thank you, referees, for turning up and for doing such a great job.
Come on, let's be positive. Just stop right there. No negativity. Let's be positive. LBP, let's be positive.
And, Gunny, let's be really positive about, can we say our Crusaders? Can we embrace the Crusaders as a nation and say that they make us all proud?
I've always claimed that they are one of the greatest sides ever to exist, Martin, and I suppose, yes, we can call them our Crusaders. Just another phenomenal performance, and it is hard to not wonder at how they continue to be so successful.
Totally agree. But, you know, and look, we're all trying to tap into this. You know, what is this Crusaders spirit? What is it? All of that. I don't know. I mean, because it's so intangible, isn't it? Why do people buy into a certain sports franchise? Why do people sometimes look at a boss and go, you're my inspiration? Why as human beings are we attracted to that person and yet this person here doesn't inspire us? Because I would say that, look, I've met Ian Foster a number of times. I really like Foz. And if Foz gave me a chance and said, hey, look, I want you to do this for me, he's been an inspirational guy in a lot of ways in my life. When I was going through a lot of troubles, he was a very generous, very warm friend who came to me and offered me all kinds of advice and support and things. And yet he's not considered to be that person, but Razor is. So identify it and explain it. What is the characteristic?
I don't know, Martin. I mean, I've spent plenty of time in Canterbury, and for the life of me, I can't work out what it is about that particular group that, regardless of who the players are and who the other staff that come in and out of, continue to deliver very similar results. 12 titles now. 12 titles in total since 1998. It's mind-blowing. If it was easy to come up with a reason for it, everyone would be doing it.
Yeah.
You know, so, but to imagine new players coming in and out of that group and always doing it, it's mind-blowing. And as much as, you know, I wouldn't have minded seeing the Chiefs get up, it didn't surprise me.
No, I don't think it did. Yeah, I don't think it's
job.
I think you're right. I didn't surprise. I don't think many people will be surprised. We've just received a text in which says, "Why is Canterbury so successful?" ? If you have to ask, you won't understand. I think we're all trying to understand, though, because the thing about dynasties, and that's what this is as soon as you identify one, well, you just want your own team to be able to buy into whatever that is and create their own. And the frustration is, it just doesn't happen that often. You know, we won't talk about your Bulldogs at the moment, but Bulldogs, past teams, you had something like that going on.
And the club itself has financially been pretty successful over the years. It's not that it's a group of bumbling idiots, although at times it appears that they have had a few of them there. The Brisbane Broncos, they continue to be pretty successful. The Melbourne Storm, but not year in, year out like the Crusaders have. And for someone from down that way to say, look, if you don't know, you wouldn't understand, we're asking how. So we can understand, and yet that person couldn't put anything on the table tangible for us to consider.
There you go.
So I would say, instead of flicking the text saying we don't understand, so we'll never know, give us a reason to believe in what we should understand.
Do we have to all start shagging sheep? Is that what it is? We've got to start rubbing goats, do we? That's obviously a key to it that none of us want to buy into, isn't it? You've got to have something because there's something about being a Canterbury. We've all hated Canterbury, mate. You've hated them since you've been here. I grew up hating them.
Yeah, and to be honest, for a very long time, until they rebuilt the centre of town and turned it into something quite special, I didn't even like going there.
No.
You know what I'm saying? But, I messaged you over the weekend. I said, that's just phenomenal. And anybody that can't just appreciate that the continued success they have is something that any global franchise would love.
Yeah.
You know, you get teams win 3 or 4 in a row. A couple in a row is always a pretty good thing. 5 in a row maybe. But These guys have done 7, and 2 of those were kind of a provincial New Zealand competition. That being said, the best teams have come out in New Zealand in Super Rugby for a long time. To say you can win it year on year on year, even through a little bit of bad luck and different up and downs on and off the field, it's mind-blowing. And anyone in Canterbury that thinks they know, I think's talking out the back of a sheep.
What about booing the referee afterwards, mate? I don't mind people booing the players. I don't mind people booing the kickers. I don't mind all of that. But then again, if I mind that, should I draw the line? But when it comes to the presentation, if you're so bitter and twisted that you have sat around to ring your cowbells and to boo Ben O'Keefe and the assistants, that requires a level of anger that I kind of admire. But at the same time, I think, yeah, really? Was the ref really to blame? Let's be positive about it. Was the ref to blame? I don't think the ref was to blame. He should have sent Anton Leonard-Brown from the field and got a red card. So it's checks and balances, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. Look, I'm not for the abuse of officials, and particularly at club level sport or junior sport. I mean, it's an absolute no-go there. And the players don't tend to do it, and if they do it, they're penalised on and off the field. If the crowd wants to do it, it's a reflection of the crowd and not a reflection of the referee. So, Waikato did very well this year. They will be bitter. They will have a horrible taste in their mouth for the next year, knowing that the Cantabs, the sheep shaggers, were just too good. Just too good. So let them boo. Let them boo, I say, Martin. Let them boo.
Boo as much, because I tell you what, you can boo and it doesn't bring it back, does it? Let's talk about a guy called Reece Walsh.
Obstruction. Go get it, you go to the... Shut up. Adam, he'll go next one.
So Reece Walsh is now saying that it wasn't directed at the referee, it was directed at another player. I can't wait for the Qatari player, because there's another subject we'll talk about, say, I didn't actually call him the N-word, I actually called myself the N-word. Come on, Reece, none of us are buying this pal. He has to go for a skate, doesn't he?
Oh, he has to go, Martin. And the idea that a bloke who's already been through a number of questionable incidents thinks he can just say it wasn't directed at the referee and that'll make anyone actually believe him is as delusional as non-Christchurch Crusaders Canterbury fans who don't understand why they win all the time.
Go on.
Absolutely delusional. No two ways. Got to go.
All right.
For several weeks.
Next topic. What about our Warriors now, mate? Because while your doggies are languishing and it's another wooden spoon season for you, I know the Warriors have always been your second favourite team, and you've been very realistic about the Warriors. You've never jumped the hype train. You've never been a bandwagon guy, and you love your league and you appreciate your league. Matt, what are you seeing at the moment that is so different about this team, and how legit now are they?
Well, they're 100% legit, Martin. And after the win the other night where they continue to pile on points and they made it look so easy, sitting in 5th position, still got a bye up their sleeve. The Sharks are in 4th but have had an extra game off. And looking at the Storm, the Broncos and the Panthers, all teams that have lost 5 games this year, so they're not looking unbeatable. I just feel like if the Warriors can finish this top 4 and get themselves a terrific quarterfinal, they're a real show. I mean, there've been times through the season where I've wondered whether or not they could compete with those top couple of sides, particularly the Panthers and the way the Broncos have played, right? You saw the Rabbits were looking towards taking the top of the table a few weeks ago, and look where they are now. So the competition is so even that it's not funny, and I think it is not unreasonable for the Brains Trust at Penrose Park to be wanting a top 4 finish and an expectation that they could absolutely make the big dance. And I'm not saying they will win it. I'm not expecting them to win it. But what I do honestly believe is that they are good enough to compete for it. Now, it doesn't mean they'll get there, but at the moment, the way they play, the way that they review each game, very few excuses. When they've come back or when they've lost, they've just talked about the game plan. I think they know where they need to be and where they want to go. I feel very good about the next 10 rounds and where they might finish. And I just hope they continue as they're going so that they finish in a place they deserve. I think the Warriors are a chance.
Look, this and the worry for all Warriors fans is, look, Matt, when you finish a season like, we did last year, 2-16, when poor old Stacey's fronting the media saying the players give up, they got no respect for the jersey, all of that kind of stuff. You win 6 games in total. The start of the season was a flourish. Wow, we won 4 out of the first 5 games, and all of a sudden, but now it gets real to me. Now it's like, okay, this isn't just a fly-by-night team. This isn't a team that's on a streak. This is a team now that is demolishing other teams. So this is a team now that all of a sudden the weight of expectation starts to go through the roof. You know where I'm going with this. It's not a could. We're starting to talk about should now. That's a scary prospect for every Warriors fan.
Well, they did look a bit shaky for a few weeks, and we started to ask questions, but they stood firm and they didn't change the way they went about it. And look where they are now. That says it all. They've come off some terrible seasons. This one is not going to go downhill. The responsibility's on them. And I bet that not a single player there wants to come up with a single excuse for why it gets wobbly in the next 10 weeks. They'll definitely be there. They'll be competing. Let's hope they keep the players they need to fit, because that could be one of the keys for all the top sides over the next 10 weeks is being able to maintain momentum, win games the way they need to, play the way they need to, and not get injuries or stupid suspensions.
All right, final. Let's be positive about the All Whites, and I'm finding it really hard to be positive about this. Last Tuesday when the incident erupted, my initial reaction was I'm proud of them because I abhor racism on all levels. You know that. We all do. Racism is BS. As the days have unfolded, we get the benefit of hindsight. Where do you sit now? I've completely reversed on this. I think now that I hope FIFA don't punish us, but we deserve it. And for those players to take the law into their own hands and the CEO to endorse that at the time is a failing on both the players' behalf and also their management. Walking off the field at a perceived insult that the player who was insulted now says he didn't take it as an insult. What the hell was going on there?
Well, I do have a question for you. Hang on a second. I had an alarm going off for some reason.
That's right.
Here we go. Here's my question for you. How can we decide on the level of racial abuse when the guy who claims abuse from another guy who also now says he was abused during the same game refuses to say what the abuse was? And when the player now says, as you've just mentioned, that he wasn't that offended by the abuse during the abuse, although he wouldn't say it, and feels like it has no place in the game, what should we conclude about the abuse? And given the abusive language was apparently enough for the team to not return in the second half, we can only conclude the abuse was abusive enough to offend enough people who weren't even abused to not come back, pack up the fiddlesticks and leave. It's fascinating. And Martin, here's the other question for you.
On.
If you paid to see the full game, would you feel abused? Or would you want to hear the abusive language used to decide the fate of the game before you felt abused for only getting half a game's value?
I can't say any better than Matt. That's just brilliant.
Devlin.
That's brilliant.
That is a disgusting act.
The Platform.